Clara gazed at the vast Texan plains through the dusty truck window, her fingers intertwined in her lap as the diesel engine rumbled down the dirt road. The June heat seeped through the glass, causing sweat to trickle down her forehead as she tried not to think of her parents' parting words. "You're useless anyway, at least now you'll finally be of some use." The words echoed in her mind like the hot wind sweeping across the surrounding cotton fields. Samuel drove in silence, his calloused hands firm on the steering wheel, occasionally casting furtive glances at the young woman beside him. He had paid $500 for her, not out of desire but out of necessity, someone to cook, clean, and help with the increasingly difficult farm chores. The ranch appeared on the horizon like a mirage, a faded wooden house, a peeling red barn, and fences stretching as far as the eye could see, all under the relentless Texas sun. The farm routine began before dawn, when the rooster announced another day of arduous work under the endless Texas sky. Clara woke in the small room Samuel had assigned her, with its bare wooden walls and a single window, offering a view of the pastures where cattle grazed slowly. Her hands, once soft, quickly developed calluses from the housework, brewing strong black coffee, frying bacon until crisp, baking golden buttermilk biscuits in the wood-fired oven. Samuel ate in silence, his blue eyes avoiding hers, treating her more as an employee than as a companion. Conversations were limited to practical instructions. The east pasture fence needs mending. The cattle need mineral salt. The well pump is acting up again. Clara felt the weight of loneliness grow each day as she watched Samuel work in the fields, his solitary figure against the golden horizon, carrying the burden of a life that seemed to have lost its purpose long before she arrived. Sundays brought the added discomfort of curious glances at the small Methodist church, where community women whispered among themselves as Clara walked down the dark wooden pews. Her simple clothes, cotton dresses she had brought from home, contrasted with the more elaborate attire of the prosperous farmers' wives, their discreet jewelry sparkling under the light filtered through the stained glass windows. "She's Samuel's new woman," she heard in the whispers. "They say she came from far away. Poor thing, so young." Clara kept her head down during sermons, pretending to concentrate on the pastor's words about redemption and forgiveness, while feeling the weight of the silent judgments around her. Samuel remained equally distant even in church, greeting neighbors with brief nods before leading her back to the truck for the silent ride to the ranch. Sunday afternoons dragged on, long and empty, with only the sound of the wind in the trees and the distant lowing of cattle breaking the oppressive silence that had become the soundtrack of her new life. The storm arrived without warning on a July night, with winds howling like ghosts across the open fields and rain pounding the tin roof like hail. Clara awoke to the sound of creaking wood and something heavy falling in the yard, her eyes adjusting to the darkness as lightning illuminated the room in blinding white flashes. Samuel was already on his feet, pulling on his work boots in haste, his face tense in the dim light of the lantern. "The fences are down," he shouted over the roar of the tempest. "I need to save the cattle before they scatter onto the road." Clara didn't hesitate, pulling on her own boots and following him into the torrential rain that instantly drenched them. They worked side by side for the first time, fighting the wind to tie temporary ropes, their bodies moving in desperate synchronicity as the storm tested every fiber of their strength. It was then, yelling instructions to each other through the tempest, that the barriers began to break much like the fences around them, revealing an unexpected connection forged in adversity. In the days that followed the storm, something fundamental had shifted in the atmosphere of the ranch, as if the air had been cleared along with the dust the rain had washed from the fields. Samuel began including Clara in decisions about the ranch, asking her opinion on which fences to repair first and how to reorganize the pasture for better protection against future storms. She discovered she had strong opinions about property management, practical suggestions that Samuel came to value and implement. Meals became less silent, filled with discussions about cattle prices, plans for planting drought-resistant sorghum, and stories about their previous lives that they had carefully guarded until then. Clara learned about the wife Samuel had lost 5 years earlier in a car accident and how guilt had turned him into a recluse. Samuel discovered the pressure Clara had faced from her family, the shame of being considered defective for not being able to have children, and the silent courage she had developed to survive. Gradually, the ranch transformed from a place of exile into a home where both found purpose and companionship. The community noticed the change when Clara began to speak during conversations after Sunday service, offering recipes for preserves she had perfected and gardening advice that surprised the older women with its practical wisdom. Samuel smiled more often, his posture less stooped by the weight of loneliness, and neighbors commented on how the ranch seemed more prosperous and well kept. Clara planted a vegetable garden behind the house with tomatoes, bell peppers, and herbs that grew abundantly under her dedicated care, transforming simple meals into feasts of fresh flavors. She learned to value her own strength, no longer defining herself by the ability to bear children, but by the ability to nurture life in other ways, in the land, in the animals, and in the wounded soul of a man who had forgotten how to live. Samuel, in turn, discovered that love did not need to be measured by the ability to procreate, but by the willingness to build something meaningful together with another person. Together, they found a form of completeness neither had imagined possible, proving that sometimes the best stories begin when we least expect them and in the most improbable circumstances. Autumn brought subtle but profound changes to the ranch, with the oak leaves turning golden hues that mirrored the new warmth in Clara and Samuel's relationship. Mornings began with conversations about the day's plans as they shared coffee on the porch, watching steam rise from ceramic mugs against the crisp morning air. Clara had learned to interpret weather signs in the clouds and in the cattle's behavior, knowledge Samuel respected and consulted before making important decisions about farm management. Working together became a synchronized dance. She prepared the tools while he checked on the animals, dividing feeding and maintenance tasks with an efficiency born of mutual trust. During the afternoons, when the Texas sun still warmed but no longer scorched, Clara tended her expanded garden while Samuel repaired equipment, both conscious of the comforting presence of the other, even when working in silence. The loneliness that once defined their lives had been replaced by a genuine partnership that surprised even them with its naturalness and strength. The first frosts of December brought new challenges that tested the solidity of the union Clara and Samuel had built over the months. The Texan winter, though less severe than in other regions, still required careful preparations: protection for young cattle, repairs to the house's heating, and stocking enough hay to sustain the animals during the colder months. Clara revealed an unexpected knack for sewing and mending, transforming old fabrics into warm blankets and sturdy work clothes that protected them from the biting wind. Samuel, in turn, taught her the secrets of equipment maintenance, showing her how to sharpen tools, change tractor oil, and make basic repairs that could save hundreds of dollars in external labor. Together they faced a flu epidemic that struck part of the herd, working day and night to administer medicine and monitor sick animals, their hands clasped in silent prayer over each animal struggling for life. This shared experience of caring for vulnerable creatures further deepened the bond between them. The arrival of spring marked a year since Clara had come to the ranch, and the transformation was visible not only in the blooming landscape, but in the increasing confidence she demonstrated in all her actions. During the annual town festival, held in the main square with homemade food stalls and live country music, Clara participated for the first time in the preserves contest, her peach jams and pickled cucumbers winning second place among competitors who had been doing it for decades. Samuel stayed close by, his pride evident in the smile that rarely left his face throughout the event, introducing her as his wife with a dignity that made Clara straighten up and smile with genuine joy. The community women, who had initially treated her with suspicion and pity, now sought her out for gardening advice and recipes, recognizing in her an equal who had earned her place through her own merit. The country music playing in the background seemed to celebrate not only the arrival of the most beautiful season of the year, but also the blossoming of a woman who had discovered her own worth amidst the endless fields of Texas. The following summer brought a severe drought that threatened to destroy everything Clara and Samuel had built together, testing their partnership in ways even the previous year's storm hadn't. The wells began to dry up, the pasture turned yellow and brittle, and the cattle huddled in the scarce shadows, panting under a relentless sun that seemed to have lost all mercy. Clara implemented a rigorous water conservation system, reusing every possible drop and creating a detailed irrigation schedule that prioritized the most essential crops for the farm's survival. Samuel was forced to sell part of the herd before the animals became too malnourished to have commercial value, a painful decision he made only after long discussions with Clara, valuing her perspective on which cattle to keep for future rebuilding. During the stifling nights, when the warm air offered no relief even in the darkness, they sat on the porch and planned survival strategies, their voices low so as not to waste energy, but determined to overcome this new adversity. The drought brought them even closer, united in their resolve to protect what they had built together. When the rains finally returned in early autumn, bringing relief to the parched land and renewed hope for the region's farmers, Clara and Samuel celebrated discreetly in the privacy of their home, knowing they had overcome one of the greatest tests rural life could offer. The ranch had not only survived, but thrived under their careful joint management, with structural improvements and more efficient systems that would make them more resilient to future adversities. Clara established a small business selling artisanal products, jams, preserves, and sewing crafts that quickly gained a reputation in the community and neighboring towns, significantly contributing to the family income. Samuel diversified the farm's activities, introducing laying hens and a small honey production that complemented cattle raising, following Clara's suggestions, which proved extremely lucrative. The house that once echoed with silence now resonated with lively discussions about future plans, shared laughter during meals, and the soft music from the radio Clara had started to play while cooking. They had built not just a home, but a legacy of perseverance and genuine love that defied all initial expectations of their union. Clara's second winter in Texas arrived with a serenity that contrasted sharply with the anxiety that had marked her arrival 2 years prior, bringing with it the certainty that she had finally found her place in the world. The community now recognized her not as the woman Samuel had bought, but as Clara Mitchell, a respected businesswoman, a reliable neighbor, and an indispensable partner in managing one of the region's most successful farms. During winter evenings, when outdoor work slowed, she and Samuel developed a habit of reading together by the fireplace, sharing books on sustainable agriculture, inspiring biographies, and occasionally novels that made them laugh and comment on the characters' adventures. Samuel had learned to express his feelings with words, not just through actions, regularly telling Clara how his life had been transformed by her presence and how he could no longer imagine the ranch without her. Clara, in turn, discovered that her inability to have biological children did not prevent her from nurturing life in countless other ways, caring for animals, cultivating plants, building meaningful relationships in the community, and mentoring young women facing their own adversities. Together, they had proven that true love can blossom in the most improbable circumstances, transforming a commercial transaction into a union based on mutual respect, companionship, and the kind of lasting happiness that arises when two people decide to build something beautiful together, despite the scars of the past. The spring of the third year brought an unexpected proposal that would forever change the trajectory of Clara and Samuel in the small rural universe they had learned to call home. A real estate developer from Dallas appeared at the ranch offering a substantial sum for the property, explaining that the region was being considered for a new residential complex to meet the urban growth of the Texas metropolis. Samuel listened to the proposal in silence, his calloused hands resting on the kitchen table, where so many important decisions had been made, while Clara served coffee to the visitors with the hospitality that had become her trademark. The offered price was tempting, enough to buy a larger property in another state or simply retire comfortably, but it also represented the end of everything they had built together on that piece of Texan land. That night, after the representatives left, Clara and Samuel walked through the pastures under the full moonlight, discussing not only the financial aspects of the offer, but the emotional significance of abandoning the place where they had discovered who they truly were as a couple and as individuals. The ranch had become more than a property. It was the tangible symbol of their mutual transformation. The following weeks were filled with deep conversations about the future, not just of the ranch, but of their individual and shared dreams that until then had remained unverbalized. Clara revealed her secret desire to expand her artisanal products business into a larger operation, perhaps a store in town that also served as a community center for rural women to learn new skills and find economic independence. Samuel confessed he had always dreamed of creating an educational program for urban youth to visit farms and learn about sustainable agriculture, connecting future generations with the land in ways his own life experiences had made precious to him. They realized that the developer's offer, while meaning leaving the ranch, could provide the necessary capital to pursue these more ambitious dreams that would benefit entire communities. During rainy afternoons, sitting on the covered porch, listening to the drumming rain on the tin roof, they drafted detailed plans that combined their individual passions with their strength as a team. The decision gradually crystallized. Accepting the offer would not be a defeat, but a natural evolution of everything they had learned together. The selling process stretched for months, involving inspections, appraisals, and negotiations that tested Clara and Samuel's patience, but also reinforced their confidence in the decision made. Each day brought back memories of significant moments lived in that place, the first storm that had brought them closer, the mornings of shared work that built their partnership, the afternoons of planning that shaped their shared dreams. Clara began cataloging her recipes and preservation techniques, documenting the knowledge she had acquired to later teach other women, transforming personal experiences into educational heritage. Samuel organized his records of cattle management and sustainable farming techniques he had developed over the years, creating a manual that could be used by novice farmers or rural educational programs. The community reacted with surprise to the news of the sale, but also with understanding when Clara and Samuel explained their future plans during a church meeting, where they received enthusiastic support and promises of collaboration. The ranch that had been their refuge would transform into a springboard to impact lives far beyond the borders of the Texas county where it all began. The farewell to the ranch was marked by an intimate celebration with close neighbors, held in the red barn that Samuel had repainted as a parting gift for the future owners. Clara prepared her culinary specialties, the famous Texas chili, golden cornbread, peach pie, and iced lemonade, while Samuel organized a small photo exhibition showing the property's evolution over their years there. Guests shared stories about how the couple had positively impacted the community, from Samuel's farming advice to Clara's artisanal products that had become coveted gifts for special occasions. During the party, old suspicions were definitively buried when women who had initially whispered about Clara now openly expressed their admiration for the strength and determination she had shown. Country music played late into the night, but the most moving moment came when Samuel gave an impromptu speech, thanking the community for having welcomed Clara and for having witnessed their transformation from lonely strangers into fulfilled life partners. Clara, usually reserved in public situations, surprised everyone by taking the microphone and speaking about how that Texas land had taught her that a person's worth is not measured by biological limitations, but by the ability to contribute, grow, and love. The move to Austin represented not only a geographical relocation, but a complete reinvention of their professional and personal identities, maintaining the fundamental values they had discovered together on the ranch. Clara established Artisan Roots, a cooperative combining a store, training center, and community space where rural and urban women learned traditional skills in food preservation, sewing, and organic gardening. Samuel created the Land and Future program, offering educational workshops for urban schools and summer camps where children and teenagers experienced rural life and learned about environmental sustainability and food security. The house they bought on the outskirts of the city had enough space for a demonstration garden and a small area for raising chickens, allowing them to continue practicing the self-sufficiency principles they had perfected on the ranch. During the first few months, they faced the challenge of adapting rural knowledge to the semi-urban environment, but discovered that their experience as a team made them more resilient to changes. Clara and Samuel often reflected on how their lives had evolved since that tense first day in the truck, recognizing that every obstacle overcome had strengthened not only their union, but their ability to face new challenges with confidence and optimism. The 5th anniversary of their first meeting was celebrated with a trip back to the county where it all began, not out of nostalgia, but to check the progress of the community projects they had helped establish before the move. The The location of their old ranch now housed a modern residential complex, but Clara and Samuel felt satisfied to see that green areas had been preserved and that some of the century-old oak trees still provided shade for the new residents. In town, they visited women who continued to use preservation techniques learned from Clara and young people who had participated in Samuel's first workshops, now applying sustainable agriculture principles on their own properties. During dinner at the same church where they had faced curious glances years ago, they were welcomed as local heroes who had transformed personal experience into lasting community benefit. Clara watched Samuel interact easily with people who once knew him only as the lonely farmer, admiring how he had developed communication skills that made his lessons on sustainability accessible and inspiring. Together, they had proven that second chances can lead to third, fourth, and infinite opportunities for growth, provided they are faced with courage, genuine partnership, and the willingness to transform personal scars into shared wisdom that benefits entire communities. The following years solidified Clara and Samuel as leading figures in their respective fields, transforming the initial pain of their personal stories into fuel for initiatives that impacted hundreds of families across Texas and neighboring states. The Artisan Roots Cooperative expanded to 5 cities, creating a network of entrepreneurial women who marketed organic and artisanal products through an online platform Clara had developed with the help of young local programmers. Samuel received state recognition for the Land and Future program, which now served over 50 schools, and had established partnerships with universities for research in sustainable agriculture. During national conferences on rural development, the couple often spoke together, sharing not only technical knowledge, but the personal story of overcoming adversity that made their messages more powerful and authentic. Clara developed the confidence to speak publicly on topics beyond agriculture, addressing issues of female self-esteem and emotional resilience that resonated deeply with diverse audiences. Samuel discovered a natural talent for mentorship, guiding young farmers and rural entrepreneurs who faced challenges similar to those he had overcome, proving that lived experience can be as valuable as formal education. The arrival of their 10th anniversary together marked a celebration that brought together representatives from all the communities Clara and Samuel had touched over the decade, transforming Austin into a meeting point for people from rural and urban backgrounds who rarely would have had the opportunity to interact. The party was organized at the city's convention center, but Clara insisted on serving food prepared by women from her cooperative, maintaining the authenticity that had always characterized their initiatives. During the event, videos were presented documenting the impact of their projects, families who had risen out of poverty through the crafts program, young people who chose careers in sustainable agriculture after participating in the workshops, entire communities that had adopted ecological practices learned through their initiatives. Samuel was moved to see former participants in his programs, now successful adults, credit him with part of their professional and personal achievements. Clara received a special tribute from a group of women she had met during her early years on the ranch, all now prosperous businesswomen who maintained businesses based on traditional skills adapted to the modern market. The celebration demonstrated how authentic love and dedicated work can create waves of positive impact that extend far beyond the lives of those who initiated the movement. During a research trip to California's Central Valley, Clara and Samuel discovered communities of Latino immigrants facing challenges similar to those they had overcome, inspiring them to expand their initiatives to include issues of cultural diversity and social integration. Clara was particularly touched by the stories of women who had been marginalized for not conforming to traditional expectations of their cultures of origin, recognizing parallels with her own experience of family rejection. Samuel identified opportunities to adapt his educational methods to the traditional agricultural practices of these communities, building bridges between ancestral knowledge and modern sustainability techniques. Together, they developed a bilingual pilot program that respected cultural traditions while introducing innovations that could improve productivity and family income. The project required both of them to learn basic Spanish and deeply study Latin American customs, a process that brought them even closer as they faced together the challenge of effectively communicating across linguistic and cultural barriers. This multicultural experience enriched not only their professional programs but also their personal understanding of how diversity can strengthen communities when approached with respect and genuine interest in learning. The national economic crisis that particularly affected rural communities once again tested the resilience Clara and Samuel had developed, forcing them to quickly adapt their programs to assist families in situations of financial emergency. Clara transformed part of her cooperative into a food distribution center, organizing community gardens that provided fresh produce for needy families while teaching self-sufficiency food skills. Samuel redirected his educational workshops to include training in basic home repairs, energy conservation, and household economy techniques that could reduce family expenses during difficult times. Both worked with government organizations and NGOs to identify families at greatest risk, applying the social sensitivity they had developed through their own experiences of adversity. During long nights of strategic planning, Clara and Samuel recalled their own financial struggles during the drought on the ranch, using those memories to develop practical and compassionate solutions for others facing similar difficulties. The crisis, though challenging, reinforced their life's purpose and demonstrated how solid partnerships can become even stronger when tested by adverse circumstances that demand creativity, sacrifice, and renewed determination. As their 15th year together approached, Clara and Samuel decided to document their experiences in a book that would combine personal memoir with a practical guide for couples and individuals facing challenging life transitions. Clara took responsibility for the personal narrative, discovering an unexpected talent for writing that captured not only events, but the complex emotions and internal transformations they had experienced. Samuel contributed technical chapters on sustainable agriculture and community development, but also revealed emotional vulnerability by writing about his journey of grief and rediscovery of love after the loss of his first wife. The joint writing process further deepened their intimacy, requiring them to revisit difficult moments with brutal honesty while celebrating achievements with genuine humility. Editors from various publishing houses expressed interest in the manuscript, recognizing the commercial potential of a story that combined authentic romance with practical advice on resilience and rural entrepreneurship. During revision sessions, Clara and Samuel often surprised themselves by discovering different perspectives on the same events, enriching the narrative with multiple layers of understanding that made the story more complex and universally relevant. The launch of the book, Seeds in Arid Soil, A Journey of Redemption and Love in the Heart of Texas, coincided with the establishment of a non-profit foundation dedicated to supporting rural women in vulnerable situations and promoting sustainable agriculture in underserved communities. Clara assumed the presidency of the organization, applying leadership skills she had gradually developed over the years, while Samuel became educational director, overseeing training programs in multiple states. The book launch tour took them back to their Texan origins, where they were received as local celebrities who had transformed personal experiences into national inspiration. During a presentation at the library in their old town, Clara looked out at the diverse audience, farmers, university students, businesswomen, retirees, and realized how her words now reached people she could never have imagined influencing during those lonely first days on the ranch. Samuel watched groups of young farmers asking sophisticated technical questions about sustainability, remembering when he himself was an isolated man who could barely converse with neighbors. Together, they had created a legacy that transcended their personal stories, proving that true love not only transforms those who experience it, but generates waves of positive change that can impact future generations through examples of courage, perseverance, and the willingness to transform pain into meaningful purpose.